Hey everybody, and welcome back to FSi DFS. I'm McKinley412. We're going to be looking at the Wednesday early slate for this video. Mega Ruler, if you're looking for the night slate, that's also 7 games. He's going to be having that one covered in a separate YouTube video, so keep your eyes out for that one. I am recording this the night before, so just pay attention to any weather changes. Everything looks pretty good. Detroit, it says on DK, it says rain, but the weather app says sunny and 83 degrees, so I'm not sure where that rain threat is coming from. And then pitchers, they all look like to be, expected and already probable on MLB.com. So I don't think there's going to be really any shakeups. So let's just kind of dive right in. Gossman right up at the top, 11K for him going off against Miami. Miami doesn't strike out as much as you would think as a team, and Gossman's been very, up and down in terms of his strikeout rate. So he has obviously, I think, one of the higher ceilings of any pitcher on this slate, but he also has, somewhat of a limited floor. I'm not going to say he has a limited floor, but somewhat of one. You can see, the up and down roller coaster that the strikeouts have been, 4-4, 13-11, 8-4, 10-9, 4, 13-11. It is just a wild ride. And which one is going to be showing up? Well, if I knew, I'd be a lot richer. But he's facing off against Miami. Again, Miami, they don't strike out nearly as much as you would think. As an offense, they're a bottom 10 offense in strikeout rate against right-handed pitching. So figure out what you want to do. He's not my favorite pitcher. We'll get to the sheet here in a second. But he's not my favorite pitcher up at the top here. Javier going up against the Mets. Javier, at 10.2K, I want my pitchers to get at least 2.5K or 2.5x their salary. So if they're $10,000, I want them to get me, can I see them getting 25 points on a fairly routine day? Javier just doesn't do that. 10.2K, I'm looking for 25 DK points. He's only done that twice in the entire season. He had a 28 DK point game in April and a 33 in early May. Since then, he has not touched that number. He's come close a couple of times with some low 20s, but I just don't think with the strikeout rate that he has and the contact that the Mets can make throughout their lineup, I just don't have a whole lot of interest in here in Javier, just because I think he has just such a reduced ceiling. And also, I think his floor isn't the greatest either. So I would definitely rather go with Gallon or Gossman over Javier. And Gallon, he's going to be the guy that I think is my favorite play in this upper tier, in this upper echelon. He provides the ceiling, a similar ceiling to that of Gossman. He's $1,000 cheaper. He's in a much better matchup in terms of, strikeout rates. Like I mentioned, Miami is a bottom 10 team in strikeout rate against right-handed pitching, whereas Milwaukee, they're a top 3 team in the past month against right-handed pitching. So Milwaukee, there's lots of strikeouts to be had in this lineup. I do think that Gallon provides a little bit better of a strikeout floor. He's been tossed around a couple of times here lately, especially against Detroit and Philadelphia, as you can see. But I do think that Gallon, with the discount, with the matchup and everything considered, I do think that he's going to be my favorite pitcher in this upper tier. Bradley, going up against Baltimore, he's had some massive home road splits here. I don't know what's going on at home, but you can see it's pretty ugly. An ERA of over 7, only 13 DK points, 17 innings pitched. So he's been far better on the road. The home teams that he has been facing, Texas, Toronto, Houston, Boston, those are some tough matchups for sure. But Baltimore, they're not an easy offense to be going up against either. So it definitely makes sense, why he has struggled a little bit on the road, or why he has struggled a little bit at home. But I do think that he can have a little bit more struggles here on Wednesday. Let's just go to the sheet here before I talk too far into here and I forget everything. But Gallon is going to be my favorite one. Gossman, I think, he's right there toe-to-toe with Gallon. I just like the pricing and the matchup a little bit better on Gallon. But if you want to go ceiling GPP, Gossman's ceiling is over 40 DK points on any given night. Javier and then Bradley. In the mid-tier, I got Abbott, Wells, and Teheran. I mean, all 3 of these guys I think are fine. Honestly, I think I might move Abbott down below, even below both of these guys. I'm still not sure. But like with Abbott, he's going up against Colorado. Colorado really is just not a great team. Like they're one of the worst teams in terms of like WOBA and all that stuff against left-handed pitching over the course of the past month here. But Abbott, like I'm concerned with his walk rate. Yes, he's had 3 starts in the majors. Yes, he hasn't allowed a single earned run. But when you have, 12 strikeouts compared to 9 walks, like that's concerning. There is definitely going to be some regression happening. He's playing in Cincinnati. It's not a pitcher-friendly park by any means. So there's going to be some regression here. So I do think that Abbott, he's a fine play for sure, given everything. But I do think I might put him even below Wells and Teheran here, as we get closer to lock, as I get more data. This is more of a first look. I just want to get the videos out before, so that when you guys were going to work in the morning or whenever you watch these videos, that it was already out for you guys. Wells, he has been the master of consistency. Honestly, he's been one of the most consistent pitchers in the entire league so far this season. It sounds crazy to say, but it's true. I mean, you can kind of see as you're scrolling down here, like he's only had 1 game or 1 start so far this season where he's been limited to single-digit DraftKings points, but he also has that nice, solid strikeout upside. You can see he's averaging close to 8 strikeouts in over the past month or so of starts. So he went 8-7, 8-7, 9, 4-8 there. Keeps it under control in terms of his walk rate. He keeps it low. The only issue is that he can get torched a little bit from time to time in terms of the home runs. So it's not really what you want to have as your weakness when you're going up against this Tampa Bay offense. But it is what it is. I mean, Wallace has still shown some consistency with some strikeout upside. Just a brutal matchup, which is one of the reasons why I did put initially Abbott over Wells here. Teheran, he's going up against Arizona. He's only had a couple of starts, or a handful of starts so far on the season, and he's pitched very well in all of them. No complaints there. It's just that this Arizona offense is better than any of the offenses that he has faced so far on this season. So he's been a decent pitcher in years past, as we know. He has that strikeout upside stuff. It's just a tough matchup. But again, I might, as I think about it more and get more data and everything, I might put Teheran over Abbott just because Abbott's, walk rate is just sky high, and his K to walk rate ratio is just, it's not sustainable what he's been able to do so far on the season. But either way, I like all 3 of these guys. I can't really go too wrong with that. In the cheap tier, I mean, kind of the same thing. I kind of like a lot of these guys in the cheap tier. It sounds crazy, but they're so cheap that I do have interest in them. Hill is actually going to be the guy I'm going to have the most interest in, going up against the Cubs. Since May 1st, Chicago, top 4 strikeout team in the league against left-handed pitching. So, I mean, Hill has already proven that he can have 5 or more strikeouts, on a very, very consistent basis throughout. And we've seen his price drop significantly. He was up to 8K in late May, and now he's already down to 6.4K in a pitcher-friendly park against a team that strikes out quite a lot. If he can limit the walks, that's the big thing. It's kind of like the Abbott deal. I like him. I think he's a nice play. But he's got to show some control in terms of the walks. But if he can do that, I think that he's going to be a fine play, even at 6.4. Not even at 6.4K. I think he's not really going to be burning your lineup if you do go down there. Boyd, Singer, McGill, kind of the same thing. All 3 of these guys are below 6K, which is amazing. Boyd has already faced Kansas City so far this season. Didn't get the win, but only went 4.2 innings pitched. But still, he had 6 Ks, 2 walks, only allowed 1 earned run, 3 hits. I mean, that's a solid outing. And really, when you get down to this pricing tier, below 6K, if you got pitchers that are still going 85 plus pitches, you got to have some interest in them. They're going they have a long leash. They're going deep into games. Even when Boyd is allowing 4 or 5 runs, they're still sending him out there to his full leash, in the mid to upper 80s. And at 5.48K, I mean, that's definitely something that I'm going to have some interest in. Singer, kind of the same deal. He also faced Detroit, but on the opposite end of the spectrum, he didn't do so well, ended up in the negatives. But it's what I just mentioned. Even in these games where he is allowing 4 or 5 earned runs, they're still giving him a long leash, and he's still out there for 90 plus pitches. And at 5.5K, if we got a guy, who has a strikeout floor, facing like a weaker offense in general, who's going to be pitching 90 plus pitches at 5.5K, you're going to have some interest in him there. And then McGill going up against Houston. This is more so Houston's offensive ineptitude as of late. They have scored more than 3 runs in just one of their past 6 games. Like, they're really struggling here without Yordan Alvarez in the middle of the lineup. So it's going to be hurting them for quite a bit, because he's going to be out for a couple weeks at this point in time. So honestly, this cheap tier, I think I kind of could have interest in all of them, could have interest in all the mid tiers. I apparently just like this pitching slate. Alcantara, I don't have any interest in him. He's been allowing, a lot of hard contact as of late. He's allowing more hard contact this season than he has in his entire career. Now he's going up against Toronto, a very, high contact team. So don't have too much interest in him there. Seabold, same deal. Just no thanks. And then Hendricks, I also have a fade. And this is more so like Hendricks' strikeout rate is just anemically low. I think it's at 14% when I looked, if I'm remembering that correctly. Yeah, the Pirates, their offense is struggling mightily over the course of the past 2 weeks. But still, when you got a pitcher 7.1K with a strikeout rate of below 15%, it's tough to get too much interest in him, especially when you got guys like Hill, Boyd, Singer, McGill at similar strikeout rates and better matchups and, 2K cheaper. Yeah. So that's that. So let's turn towards the bats here. Cincinnati's going to be my favorite team going up against Seabold and Colorado. It's going to be the lefties from Cincinnati, so guys like Fraley and Friedel. Obviously, Ellie De La Cruz is just taking the league by storm, which is fantastic. Cincinnati's got so many fun young guys. They're going to be a great team to watch here over the next handful of years. But De La Cruz for sure, Fraley and Friedel. I feel like these would be my 3 starting guys if I was going to be going with the Cincinnati stack. I think they're going to be a pretty popular stack. And you'll kind of see why as we talk a little bit more about the bats. There's not many other teams that are really yes, I got to have them. Because, I just told you, there's a lot of pitchers that I do have interest in on this slate. I'm just going to the pitchers here. If you throw in Gallen, then we'll just throw in Taylor. No, we actually won't. Let's go on to the cheap guys. We'll go with Boyd. 4K remaining. If you go any of these cheap guys, you're going to be able to be just fine. If you want to go with a little bit more consistency to a guy like Wells in a tough matchup, 3.5K remaining. So I don't think, salary is going to be too much of an issue when your most exciting stack or my favorite stack is going to be Cincinnati. And even with their best bats, it's going to be pretty affordable to throw in some lines there. I have Arizona here as the second favorite team, and it's over Toronto and it's over Houston. Toronto and Houston, I think, are in a better matchup against a weaker pitcher. But Houston, I just talked about their offensive, struggles over the course of the past week, especially since, Alvarez went down, a week and a half ago. That's really the main concern. They're just not seeing the ball well. They're just really struggling. Same with Toronto. Toronto actually is the exact same stat line in that they have only scored more than 3 runs in only one of their past 6 games. So their guys are really struggling as well. And then Toronto's extremely expensive as well. When you're looking at guys like Springer and Vlad and Bichette and Chapman, these guys are all very expensive, essentially 5K and above for all 4 of those guys. But if we can go over to Arizona, who going up against Teheran, like I said, he's only had a handful of starts and he's been decent, but he has not faced an offense like Arizona. Arizona is, a top 3 offense in terms of runs scored per game on the season, and the teams that Teheran has faced have not even been close to what Arizona can generate. And they're much cheaper, much cheaper. So we love it. If we are going to be jamming in Arizona, it's going to be Corbin Carroll. Obviously, he's going to be leading things off. A nice lefty-righty matchup from there. But even some of their righties do have some nice numbers against right-handed pitching. Guys like Walker, guys like Gurriel, Perdomo, 3.4K. Those are the top 4 guys who have the best, numbers against right-handed pitching. I'm talking ISO, slugging percentage, WOBA, that kind of stuff. Those are the 4 guys that have the best numbers. Carroll, Perdomo, Walker, and Gurriel. Marte, if you do want to go there, that's totally fine. But I do think Perdomo can give you a little bit more of salary relief at 3.4K. So it's not going to be too tough. Jamming in, lineups that you like, or at least it won't be tough for me to jam in lineups that I enjoy. So like if you go with the cheap pitcher, you're still looking at 3.7K remaining. If you go into a mid-tier, it gets a little bit tougher, but maybe you go with the cheap catcher or cheap first baseman, whoever you want. All right. Let's see. Who else do we have? Toronto, Houston, talked about that. Baltimore, GPP. I think they're my favorite GPP play. Going up against Taj Bradley. We talked about Bradley's extreme struggles at home for whatever reason it is. But maybe Baltimore can certainly get on top of that. I don't think Bradley is going to garner too much ownership. So it's not really like a true leverage player by any means. But I do think that Baltimore, they have the bats that can certainly explode. And they're a threat to score 7-8 runs pretty much on any night that they're facing a non-ace pitcher. Colorado, I think they're right behind them in terms of GPP, going up against Abbott. Just talked about Abbott's, I'm really concerned about his controls. He's going to be due for some regression, and honestly, that could be a nice leverage play. Like if it's looking like Abbott's going to be seeing a lot of ownership, maybe you go with Colorado in that regard, and their bats in that small ballpark against a pitcher who's got some weak control. The main issue here is that the Cincinnati bullpen has actually been really, really good. So if Abbott does get pulled early on, it's not going to look too great for those Colorado bats moving forward. In terms of the cheap guys, Detroit, Kansas City, there's going to be runs scored in this game. I can't remember what the over-under was. Sorry, couldn't think of that for a second. Don't remember what the over-under was, but it wouldn't shock me if the over-under's, around 9 to 9.5 in this game. I do think there's going to be quite a few runs here with some weaker, quote-unquote, weaker pitchers. But they're both just extraordinarily cheap. So you go to Detroit, 4.3K is the most expensive guy, but you're down into the low 3Ks almost immediately. On the Kansas City side, they have some more expensive guys with Witt and Perez, but then you're immediately down into the low 3Ks as well. So there's going to be runs, according to Vegas, and there's weaker bullpens, and they're very affordable salaries. So if you just want to go with some, one-off guys from Kansas City or Detroit, I wouldn't mind that either. So, that's kind of where the slate shakes out. I love the pitching. I do think that Cincinnati is going to be the obvious top team. But after that, it gets pretty muddled. I'd probably put Arizona right after them. And then this mid-tier, I could kind of shake all around. And the cheap tier, I kind of actually have a little bit of interest in all of them, which I don't think I've said all season long. So thanks for watching. Again, if you're looking for the main slate, or if you want to watch the main slate, Mega Ruler is going to have that video covered. So go ahead and check that one out when it is up. Thanks for watching as always. We really appreciate it. Good luck in your contests, and we'll see you on Thursday.